Dad-perfect events. My son-in-law didn't know I owned 60% of his construction company when he slid that nursing home brochure across his marble dining table. To him, I was just George Parker, the old mechanic in worn overalls who embarrassed his wife at fancy parties. He had no idea I was worth $2.8 billion. Then he made the mistake of threatening to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't sign over my auto shop. That envelope he pushed toward me, it was about to become the biggest mistake of his life. Let me back up and tell you how we got there. My name is George Parker. I'm 67 years old, and I learned something important over the decades. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon an old man can carry is being underestimated by everyone around him. For the past 15 years, ever since my wife Martha passed, I've been living in the small house behind my old auto shop on Maple Street. Most folks see a retired mechanic who gets by on Social Security and maybe some savings. They see the grease still. Under my fingernails, the work boots I've had for 10 years. The pickup truck that's seen better days. What they don't see is the business empire I built quietly, one smart investment at a time. It started back in 1982, when I was still running Parker's Auto Repair full-time. I was 23 years old, married Martha the year before, and we were scraping by on what the shop brought in. But I had a good head for numbers and noticed something interesting. The city was expanding eastward and nobody was paying attention to the industrial properties in that direction. I bought my first warehouse for $15,000 using our savings and a loan against the shop. Martha thought I'd lost my mind. The building was a wreck. Broken windows, leaking roof, no heat. But I could see its potential. I spent evenings and weekends fixing it up myself. Plumbing, electrical work, new roof, fresh paint. Within 2 years, I rented it to a small manufacturing company for triple what my mortgage payments were. That's when I understood the real secret to building wealth. Buy low, add value through your own work, hold long term. While other guys my age were buying new cars and bigger TVs, I was reinvesting every extra dollar into more properties. By 1985, I owned 4 warehouses and 2 apartment buildings. Martha had come around to my vision by then. She started keeping the books and helping me research potential purchases. We'd drive around on Sundays, looking for for sale signs on properties that others had given up on. The key was staying invisible. I created GP Holdings in 1987, just a simple corporation that bought and managed real estate. Nobody connected the company to George Parker the mechanic. To my customers, I was just the guy who fixed their transmissions and changed their oil. To my tenants, GP Holdings was some faceless investment company that kept the buildings in good repair and the rents reasonable. The real breakthrough came in 1990, when the savings and loan crisis hit. Banks were dumping distressed properties for pennies on the dollar. While everyone else was panicking about the recession, I was buying up prime real estate at fire sale prices. Office buildings, shopping centers, undeveloped land, anything with good bones and better location. Martha and I developed a system. She'd research the properties, run the financial projections, handle the legal paperwork. I'd do the physical inspections, oversee renovations, manage the contractors. We never borrowed more than we could afford to lose, never got greedy, never cut corners on quality. By 1995, GP Holdings owned 23 properties across 3 counties. The monthly rental income was more than most people made in a year, but we lived the same modest lifestyle we always had. Martha still clipped coupons. I still wore work clothes from Sears. The only difference was the growing bank balance and the increasing property values. Linda was born in 1992 when I was 25 and Martha was 24. We'd been trying for years, and when she finally arrived, she became the center of our universe. Martha quit her job at the bank to stay home with the baby, and I took on more automotive work to make up for the lost income. Nobody knew that the guy changing their brake pads was quietly becoming one of the biggest property owners in the region. The dot-com crash of 2000 was another goldmine for patient investors. Technology companies were folding left and right, leaving behind high-quality office space and industrial facilities. I bought a 200,000 square foot distribution center for $800,000, a building that had cost $4 million to construct just 3 years earlier. But the biggest opportunity came in 2004. Stone & Associates Construction had been in business for 30 years. Built by Harold Stone Sr. from a small residential contractor, into a major commercial builder. The problem was Harold's gambling habit and his terrible judgment about which projects to bid on. By 2004, the company was drowning in debt. From 3 failed developments and Harold's personal losses at the casino, Richard Stone was 24 then, fresh out of Northwestern Law School, trying desperately to save the family business. The company needed $3.2 million immediately, or they'd lose everything. Their equipment, their ongoing contracts, their reputation. Every bank in Chicago had turned them down. That's when Harold's attorney contacted me. Well, contacted GP Holdings. They needed a silent partner, someone willing to inject capital in exchange for majority control, but no operational involvement. Harold would remain president, Richard would handle legal affairs, but GP Holdings would own 60% of everything. I spent 2 weeks going through their books, inspecting their equipment, reviewing their contracts. Stone & Associates had good people, solid relationships with subcontractors, and expertise in commercial construction. Their only problem was management and cash flow. For $3.2 million, I could own most of a company. That did $50 million in annual revenue. Martha and I talked it over for 3 days. It was by far our biggest investment, and unlike real estate, we didn't really understand the construction business. But the numbers made sense, and Harold seemed genuinely committed to turning things around. I wrote the check on March 15, 2004. GP Holdings became the majority owner of Stone & Associates Construction. Harold kept running day-to-day operations, but every major decision required approval from the mysterious silent partner he'd never met. The turnaround was faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, the company was profitable again. Harold had stopped gambling and started focusing on the business. Richard proved to have a good eye for profitable contracts and kept them out of legal trouble. By 2006, annual revenue had grown to $75 million. That's when my daughter Linda met Richard Stone at a charity fundraiser. She was 29, working as a surgical nurse at Northwestern Memorial. He was 31, confident, successful, driving a BMW and wearing suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Linda had never dated anyone like him. I'll admit, I had my doubts about Richard from the start. There was something about the way he looked at people, like he was calculating their value to him. When Linda brought him to Sunday dinner for the first time, he complimented Martha's pot roast, but didn't eat much of it. He kept checking his phone and talking about deals he was working on, clients he was meeting, places he needed to be. But Linda was glowing. She laughed at his jokes, hung on his stories about important people he knew, seemed impressed by his talk of country clubs and business trips. After Martha died in 2009, seeing my daughter smile again was worth keeping my mouth shut about my concerns. The wedding in 2010 was everything Linda dreamed of. Richard insisted on the Westfield Country Club, a $200 per plate reception, flowers flown in from California. The whole thing cost more than I'd paid for my first 3 properties combined. I offered to help with expenses, but Richard waved me off. "Don't worry about it, George. This is what insurance policies are for." I didn't understand what he meant at the time. Later, I learned that Harold had taken out a massive loan against the company's assets to pay for Richard's lifestyle expenses. The wedding, the honeymoon in Italy, the down payment on their mansion in Westfield Hills, all of it financed by debt that Stone & Associates would spend years paying off. Not that I minded the company taking on debt. As the majority owner, I could see exactly where every dollar went through the quarterly financial reports my attorneys received. Richard was spending like a man who expected unlimited future earnings, and Harold was enabling him by treating the construction company like a personal ATM. The mansion they bought was impressive, 6,000 square feet on 2 acres, marble floors throughout, a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Richard loved showing it off. He'd invite clients over for dinner parties, take photos by the pool for his social media accounts, make sure everyone knew he lived in the most exclusive neighborhood in town. Linda seemed smaller in that house somehow. She'd fuss over every detail when I visited, adjusting flowers that were already perfect, apologizing for everything from the traffic to the weather. The woman who used to change spark plugs in my shop was now worried about whether the wine glasses matched the china. Richard's attitude toward me got worse over time. At first he was polite enough, though he never looked me in the eye when we talked. Then came the little comments about blue-collar work and how important it was for people to know their place in society. He'd talk about Linda's unfortunate background, like she should be ashamed of growing up in a working-class family. The breaking point came in 2018 when Linda got pregnant. She was 41. Richard was 39, and they'd been trying for years. Martha and I had always hoped for grandchildren, and even though she wasn't there to see it, I was thrilled about becoming a grandfather. Richard seemed less enthusiastic. He worried about the timing, the expenses, how a baby would affect their social calendar. When Linda lost the baby at 12 weeks, Richard blamed the stress of dealing with family obligations, meaning me. Maybe if Linda wasn't constantly worrying about her father living alone in that rundown neighborhood, he told Harold one day, not realizing I was within earshot. The stress of managing elderly parents can't be good for pregnancy. That was when I first understood that Richard saw me as a problem to be solved rather than family to be supported. In his mind, I was the embarrassing father-in-law who reminded people of Linda's humble origins, the old mechanic who didn't fit into their country club world. The real trouble started 18 months ago when Richard began pushing his Riverside Legacy project. It was supposed to be his masterpiece, a $2.8 billion mixed-use development with luxury condos, office space, retail, and a marina. The project would transform 50 acres of abandoned industrial land along the Chicago River into the kind of upscale community that attracts investment from around the world. Richard had been working on the concept for 3 years, assembling parcels of land, negotiating with city planners, courting investors from New York and Los Angeles. Stone & Associates would be the general contractor, but more importantly, Richard would be the lead developer. Success would establish him as one of Chicago's major real estate players. There was just one problem. My auto shop and the house behind it sat right in the middle of the land he needed for the main access road. Without that quarter-acre parcel, the entire development would be landlocked, accessible only through narrow side streets that couldn't handle the traffic from 800 residential units and 200,000 square feet of commercial space. Richard started visiting more often, always with some excuse. He'd bring architectural plans to show Linda, spreading them across my kitchen table like he owned the place. The plans were impressive, beautifully drawn renderings of glass towers reflected in the river, pedestrian walkways lined with trees, retail spaces that looked like European shopping districts. He'd point to where my property was marked and make comments about how unfortunate it was that one small parcel could hold up such an important project. The way he said it, you'd think my refusal to sell was somehow selfish, like I was standing in the way of progress for the entire city. Of course, we'd make sure you were taken care of, George, he'd say, not quite meeting my eyes. There are some really nice senior communities around here, much more appropriate for someone your age. I let him talk. I've learned over the years that you find out what people are really made of when they think they have power over you. Richard was showing me exactly who he was, and I was taking mental notes. The financial pressure got more intense as his project deadlines approached. Richard had lined up $400 million in initial funding from 3 major investment groups, but the money came with strict conditions. Every piece of required property had to be under contract within 18 months, or the investors would pull out and find another project. Every week, Richard made new offers for my land. First $200,000, then $350,000. Finally, $500,000 for property I'd bought for $8,000 in 1985. Each time I'd listen politely and decline. I'm not ready to sell, Richard. This place has too many memories. That's when his mask started slipping. The polite suggestions became veiled threats. He'd mention how dangerous it was for elderly people to live alone, how accidents could happen to someone my age. He started talking about Linda's financial security, how she deserved better than worrying about her aging father's well-being. The most telling conversation happened 3 months ago. Richard was showing Linda updated renderings of the project, pointing out features he thought would impress potential buyers. Premium appliances, smart home technology, private elevator access, panoramic river views from every unit. We're talking about revolutionizing this entire area, he said, his voice taking on the evangelical tone he used when discussing business. Property values will triple within 5 years. The city will benefit from millions in additional tax revenue. We'll create 2,000 construction jobs and 800 permanent positions. Linda nodded along, but I could see the worry lines around her eyes. She knew what he wasn't saying, that none of it would happen unless I agreed to sell. Maybe we could find another way, she suggested quietly. Maybe the road could curve around Dad's property. Richard's jaw tightened. We've been through this, Linda. The engineering studies are final. There's no other viable access route. Your father's stubbornness is jeopardizing a $2.8 billion investment and thousands of jobs. The way he said your father's stubbornness made it clear that he blamed Linda for not being able to control me. In Richard's world, family members were assets to be managed, not people to be respected. 3 weeks ago, Linda called me on a Tuesday morning. Her voice sounded strange, rehearsed, like she'd been practicing what to say. Dad, Richard and I were talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider, well, some changes. You're getting older, and we worry about you living alone in that big house. The conversation that followed was painful. My daughter, the woman I'd raised to stand up for herself and others, was reading from a script her husband had written. She talked about quality of life and professional care and peace of mind for the family. She never once asked what I wanted. There's this lovely place called Oak Haven Senior Living, she said. Richard's parents toured it last week, and they think it would be perfect for you. I knew right then that Richard had played his final card. He was using my own daughter to manipulate me into giving up everything I'd worked for. The sad part was, Linda probably believed she was helping me. After I hung up, I sat in Martha's old rocking chair and thought about the situation. Richard needed my property to complete his development deal. Direct purchase offers hadn't worked. Veiled threats hadn't worked. Now he was trying emotional manipulation through Linda, probably hoping that my love for my daughter would override my business sense. What Richard didn't understand was that I'd been playing this game longer than he'd been alive. I'd seen plenty of young hotshots who thought they could put pressure older investors into bad deals. The key was patience. Let them overplay their hand, then strike when they least expected it. The dinner invitation came last Friday. Linda called again, still with that careful, rehearsed voice. Dad, we'd love to have you over this evening. Richard's parents are in town, and we thought it would be nice to have everyone together. A family meeting. I knew what kind of meeting this would be, but I said yes anyway because sometimes you have to walk into the trap to spring one of your own. I put on my best shirt and the watch Martha had given me for our 25th anniversary. If this was going to be a showdown, I wanted to look the part. Richard answered the door with his practiced smile. George, right on time. Come in, come in. The dining room was set like something from a magazine. Crystal glasses, china plates, silverware that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Harold and Margaret Stone were already seated, looking like they were attending a board meeting rather than a family dinner. Linda hovered near the kitchen, adjusting and readjusting napkins. She kept glancing at Richard, like she was waiting for permission to speak. The meal was expensive. Lobster, filet mignon, wine that Richard made a show of opening while explaining its vintage. But I could feel the tension building. Harold kept checking his watch. Margaret barely touched her food. Richard drank more wine than usual. Finally, over dessert that nobody was really interested in, Richard cleared his throat. George, we asked you here tonight because we've been concerned about your situation. As a family, we think it's time to discuss your future. He reached under the table and pulled out a glossy brochure, placing it next to my untouched tiramisu. Oak Haven Senior Living was written across the cover, with photos of elderly people playing chess and gardening. We've done extensive research, Margaret added, leaning forward with fake enthusiasm. Oak Haven has an excellent reputation. Full medical care, social activities, meal service. You'd never have to worry about maintaining that old house again. I opened the brochure, already knowing what I'd find. This wasn't the luxury senior community Richard had probably described to Linda. This was a state-subsidized facility, the kind of place families use when they want to warehouse their elderly relatives cheaply. Harold produced a manila folder, thick with legal documents. The paperwork is straightforward, he said, in the tone of a man used to getting his way. Power of attorney, consent to sell the property, healthcare directives. We can handle all the details for you. Richard leaned back in his chair, his confidence growing as he watched what he thought was an old man being cornered. The truth is, George, the family can't keep subsidizing your property taxes and maintenance costs. Stone and Associates is facing significant expenses with the Riverside project, and frankly, we need the capital that selling your place would provide. The lie was breathtaking. I'd been paying my own bills for 67 years, including property taxes on land. That was now worth 50 times what I'd originally paid. But Richard delivered the fiction with such conviction that I almost had to admire his performance. Everyone benefits, Harold continued. You get professional care, we eliminate a financial burden, and Richard can move forward with a development that will benefit the entire community. Linda finally spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. Dad, we really think this is best. You're getting older, and that house is so big for just one person. The neighborhood isn't what it used to be. She couldn't meet my eyes when she said it. My daughter, who I'd taught to change her own oil and balance her own checkbook, was asking me to give up my independence so her husband could bulldoze my home. That's when Richard showed his true colors. Look, George, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. If you won't sign voluntarily, I'll petition the court for guardianship. I'll bring doctors who will testify that you're becoming senile, that you're a danger to yourself. He leaned forward, his practiced charm replaced by something ugly and predatory. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent and committed to a state facility where you'll spend your remaining years drooling in a wheelchair. The choice is yours, but either way, that property is getting sold. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Margaret nodded approvingly. Harold's mustache twitched with excitement. Linda sat there with tears rolling down her cheeks, saying nothing while her husband threatened to destroy her father's life. But it was Linda's silence that broke my heart. The daughter who used to defend stray animals and lost causes just sat there, choosing her husband's money over her father's dignity. I looked around the table at these four people who thought they'd cornered a helpless old man, and I smiled. Not a bitter smile or a sad one, but the kind of peaceful expression that comes when you finally get to stop pretending. Well then, I said, reaching for my phone, I guess it's time to finish this. Richard actually laughed as I pulled out my old flip phone. What are you going to do? Call the police? This is a family matter, George. You're embarrassing yourself. I dialed a number I knew by heart and put the phone on speaker. Philip Davis Law Offices, came the crisp, professional voice. Philip, it's George Parker. I need you to activate Clause 17 of the shareholder agreement for Stone and Associates Construction. Immediate asset freeze and prepare termination papers for Richard Stone, effective tomorrow morning. The silence that followed was so complete, it seemed to have weight. Richard's face went through several color changes, confident pink to confused white to something approaching gray. Mr. Parker, Philip's voice carried clearly through my ancient phone. Shall I schedule the emergency board meeting for 9 a.m.? Make it 8 a.m. sharp, full board attendance required. And Philip? Make sure security is there to escort Mr. Stone from the building. Consider done, sir. Anything else? That's all for tonight. Thanks, Philip. I closed the phone and set it gently on the table between the nursing home brochure and Richard's legal documents. Richard had shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the marble floor. What the hell is going on? George, what are you talking about? Shareholder agreement? Termination papers? I stood up slowly, my back straight with the dignity I'd carried through 67 years of life's battles. You want to know about GP Holdings, Richard? The anonymous investor who's been funding your company's growth for the past 20 years? The one whose approval you've been desperately seeking for your Riverside project? His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. GP Holdings stands for George Parker, son. I own 60% of Stone and Associates Construction. I've been the majority shareholder since before you graduated law school. The sound Richard made wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. Harold collapsed back into his chair like someone had cut his strings. Margaret's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the gray pallor spreading across her face. Linda stared at me with dawning recognition, her tears stopping as understanding finally broke through years of manipulation. You, Richard whispered, you're the silent partner, the one we've been trying to impress, the one whose funding we need, the one you just threatened to have committed to a mental institution I finished for him. The one whose property you planned to steal through elder abuse and fraud. The next morning, I put on my best suit and walked into the Stone and Associates building at 7:45 a.m., accompanied by Philip and 2 corporate security officers. The boardroom was full, 10 minority shareholders who'd watched Richard's increasingly reckless management with growing concern. When I took my seat at the head of the conference table, several of them smiled with what looked like relief. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. Last night, Richard Stone and his father attempted to defraud the majority shareholder through elder abuse, coercion, and conspiracy to illegally seize private property. Philip activated the projection system, displaying enlarged copies of the nursing home brochure and legal documents from dinner, along with recordings I'd made of Richard's threats. The evidence was damning. Richard's plan to have me declared mentally incompetent. His threats about state facilities and wheelchair confinement. His admission that the company needed my property for the Riverside project to succeed. Margaret Chen, who controlled 8% of the company through her investment firm, shook her head in disgust. I moved for immediate termination of Richard Stone as chief executive officer. Seconded, said Robert Martinez, whose crews had built half of downtown Chicago. All in favor? I asked. 10 hands rose without hesitation. The vote was unanimous. Richard was escorted from the building by security, carrying his personal items in a cardboard box. His corporate credit cards were canceled, his company car repossessed, his access to all accounts terminated immediately. 6 months have passed since that night. Spring came early this year, and from my kitchen window, I can see the construction crews working on the Riverside Legacy project. But it looks nothing like Richard's original plan. The new CEO, Nancy Coleman, redesigned the entire development to curve around my property instead of bulldozing through it. My auto shop and house now sit in the center of a small public park, where office workers come to eat lunch under the oak trees Martha and I planted 30 years ago. Richard's lawsuits collapsed when his attorneys realized he'd been recorded threatening elder abuse for financial gain. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Tampa, sharing a cramped apartment, learning what it means to count every dollar. This afternoon, Linda knocked on my door. She was wearing a simple cotton dress instead of designer clothes, her hair in a practical ponytail. She'd been working as a receptionist at a dental office for 4 months, taking the bus to work, living in a studio apartment, but she looked real for the first time in years. "Hi, Dad," she said. "I brought soup. We ate chicken and dumplings at my kitchen table, the same recipe Martha had made when Linda was growing up. As the sun set behind the trees, we sat on the front porch steps like we used to when she was 10 years old. "I'm sorry," Linda said quietly. "Not for leaving him. That was the smartest thing I've done in years. But for choosing his money over your dignity." I reached over and took her hand, noting the small calluses from her new job. "Sweetheart, you learned the most important lesson there is. Character is the only currency that truly matters. My house stands strong around us, filled with memories that no amount of money could purchase and no threat could destroy. The real treasure is sitting here with me, eating homemade soup, and finally understanding the difference between having everything and being everything. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what we display, but in what we choose to conceal. I spent 20 years being underestimated, and it gave me the perfect position to protect what really mattered. That's worth more than all the marble floors and crystal chandeliers money can buy."